The rain had already started falling when the convoy of military jeeps rolled across the muddy field, their engines snarling like restless beasts. Soldiers jumped down, boots splashing into the puddles, forming lines with the sharpness of steel. In the middle of them all walked General Victor Hale, a man whose name alone sent a tremor through every unit in the region. His face was cut from stone, his eyes cold, always searching for something, or someone, to break. The wind whipped against his coat, but he didn't flinch. He never did. Across the field, a girl no older than 19 stood trembling under a torn shawl, her thin frame shaking violently from a mixture of fear and cold. Her clothes were dusty, her hands bruised, and her gaze locked down toward the wet ground as if she was trying to disappear into it. Her name was Liana, and though everything about her seemed fragile, like something that could snap under the weight of a breath, she held a quiet strength inside that no one had ever cared to notice. The villagers had been ordered to gather outside their homes after a report of stolen military supplies. No one was allowed to move, no one dared to speak. And yet, even in silence, the tension felt loud enough to split open the sky. General Hale stalked forward, eyeing the villagers one by one. His voice boomed across the soaked field as he barked questions, accusations, commands. But no one answered, partly out of fear, partly because they genuinely didn't know. Then his eyes fell on Liana. She stood slightly apart from the others, soaked and shivering, clutching the edge of her shawl like it was the last barrier between her and destruction. Hale noticed the tremble of her hands, the way she couldn't lift her face to look at him. And in that moment, he decided she looked guilty enough. He marched toward her with long, forceful strides. Soldiers automatically shifted aside, their eyes widening, though none dared intervene. "You," Hale snapped. The single word cracked through the air. "Look at me." Liana's lips parted but no sound came out. Her shoulders tightened. She didn't lift her head. Hale stepped closer, now towering over her like a shadow tearing her world in half. Rain trickled down his face, sharp and cold. "I said," he growled, "look at me." With clear effort, Liana slowly raised her chin, revealing eyes that were terrified yet determined not to cry. Hale hated that look, fear mixed with defiance. It always made him want to crush it before it grew. He gripped her arm suddenly, yanking her forward. A gasp ripped from her throat. The villagers stiffened. The soldiers exhaled sharply, and before anyone could process the horror unfolding, the general raised his hand and slapped her across the face so hard she staggered sideways into the mud. A collective choke of shock erupted from the crowd. Liana's knees buckled. She pressed her palm to her cheek, her breath trembling. Tears threatened but didn't fall. "Not yet." Hale took a step forward, his voice rising in fury. "Tell me where the supplies are before I—" But he never finished that sentence. Because suddenly, impossibly, Liana's body went rigid. Her eyes widened. Not in fear, but in something much stranger. She dropped to her knees, clutching her stomach as if something inside her had torn open. A strangled cry escaped her lips. And then, to everyone's horror, the general himself gasped. He stumbled backward, his hands clutching his throat. What's happening?" he rasped. The soldiers froze. No one moved. Hale's breathing hitched. His knees hit the ground. It happened so fast that even Liana didn't understand it. One moment she was on the ground, the echo of the slap still burning across her face. The next, the most feared man in the whole division was choking on nothing, gasping, collapsing, all while staring at her like she was the one killing him. He reached out wildly, as if trying to grab the air. What did you do to me?" he croaked. Liana felt a pulse of fear strike her chest. I didn't do anything." But her voice shook with confusion. And buried somewhere within it, a truth trembled, one she herself didn't fully understand. The rain pounded harder. The sky cracked with thunder. And then the general screamed. Not from physical pain, but from something deeper, something invisible, something overwhelming. He grabbed his head, his fingers digging into his skull. My eyes, my head, stop it, stop it." He was crying. The general, who was rumored never to have shed a tear in his life, was crying like a child. The soldiers stared in shock. Some stepped forward, but not a single one dared touch him. Because the way he writhed, the way his body shook, the way his voice broke, it didn't look like anything they could control or fix. It looked inhuman. Liana scrambled backward on the wet ground, terrified. I didn't mean to. I didn't do anything. But something in her felt strange too. Her heart was pounding too fast. Her breathing came too shallow. And the pain from the slap, sharp, humiliating, seemed to reverberate through her entire being like a ripple that had grown into a wave. A wave that was now crashing onto the general instead of her. Whatever force had burst through her, whatever energy had awakened inside her, it was something she never knew she had. Something she couldn't explain, something she could not control. Hale's cries turned desperate. Help! Help me! Someone! Please! His voice cracked into a sob. The soldiers looked helpless. The villagers looked stunned. And Liana looked like she was witnessing the world twist inside out. The pain in the general's head intensified. It was like every memory he had ever hidden, every cruelty he committed, was tearing open and flashing before his eyes all at once. His own mind was torturing him, drowning him in the suffering he'd caused. He rocked back and forth on his knees, shaking uncontrollably, crying into the mud like a broken man. Finally, he collapsed completely. Liana crawled backward, bumping into one of the villagers who pulled her protectively behind him. "Don't touch him," the villager whispered to the soldiers. "Something's wrong. Something dangerous." Hale whimpered. His voice sounded nothing like the thunderous authority it once held. It was the voice of a frightened, wounded man begging for mercy. "Please, please make it stop." But only Liana could hear the faintest echo inside her chest, an echo that felt connected to his pain. As if the slap he inflicted had snapped something not only in her heart but in something deeper, something dormant. She didn't understand it. She didn't want it. She only wanted the pain to stop, for both of them. Her breathing steadied. Her hands lifted slightly without meaning to. Her eyes softened, and as she inhaled sharply, the invisible torment squeezing the general's mind abruptly dissolved. Hale collapsed fully onto the ground, unconscious but alive. Silence swallowed the entire field. The soldiers didn't dare move. The villagers barely breathed. Liana stared at her trembling hands, terrified of herself. One of the soldiers finally stepped forward, eyes wide and stunned. "General! Sir!" Another soldier pointed at Liana with a shaking finger. What did she do? What did she do to him?" Liana shook her head desperately. I don't know how. I didn't try." Her voice cracked, but not with weakness. With honesty. A soldier raised his weapon. Several villagers stepped in front of Liana instantly. "No," yelled an older woman. "The girl did nothing wrong. She didn't touch him." Another cried. She was the one attacked. But fear spread through the soldiers like wildfire. Fear of something unknown, something invisible, something that had been strong enough to shatter the strongest man among them. The tension was too thick, too dangerous, too close to exploding. Until a deep groan came from the ground. General Hale stirred. The soldiers immediately turned toward him. He blinked slowly, lifting his head. His breath was ragged, but his eyes, those once cold, violent eyes, were filled with something new. Fear, humility, and guilt. He looked at Liana. Their eyes met, and the general looked away instantly, as if he couldn't bear the weight of her gaze. He struggled to push himself up, supported by two soldiers. He muttered weakly. "I was wrong." Every soldier froze. Every villager gaped. Never in his entire career had General Hale admitted being wrong. Not once. Yet now, beaten not physically but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, he stood trembling, unable to face the girl he had hurt. He took a step back. Then another, and another. "Leave her," he whispered harshly to his men. "Stand down. All of you." "Sir," a soldier stammered. "That's an order," Hale snapped, but the weakness in his voice was unmistakable. The guns lowered, slowly, hesitantly. Liana remained still, unsure if she should run or collapse or scream. The general swallowed hard, the lump in his throat visible even from a distance. He approached Liana again, but this time with small, careful steps. He stopped several feet away, hands trembling at his sides. His voice barely rose above the rain. "I apologize." The word sounded broken. "I shouldn't have touched you. I shouldn't have touched anyone." Liana stared at him in stunned silence. The villagers whispered. The soldiers could hardly process it. The general swallowed again, then lowered himself, slowly, painfully, to his knees in the mud in front of her. Even Liana gasped. He bowed his head. "I am sorry." The entire world seemed to stop breathing. The strongest man had knelt. The weakest girl had stood. And though Liana had no idea how it happened, she felt something shift inside her. Something fierce, something powerful, something deeply human. The general slowly rose again. "No one will harm you," he said. "Not ever again." And for the first time in years, he meant every word he spoke. He turned to his soldiers. "We leave. Now." The soldiers hesitated but complied, helping the trembling general back to the jeeps. The engines roared to life. The convoy pulled away, and for the first time since they arrived, the field felt warm again. Liana collapsed into the arms of the villagers who hugged her, protected her, comforted her. Tears finally escaped her eyes, soft, relieved, trembling. Not because she was weak, but because she was human. As the rain slowed and the clouds began to pull apart, letting sunlight spill across the muddy field, Liana felt something new settle inside her. Strength. The kind that doesn't come from fists or guns or power, but from surviving, from feeling, from being. She looked up at the sky and whispered to herself, "I'm still here." Behind her, the villagers smiled. And very far away, in the back of a moving jeep, General Hale pressed his shaking hands to his face, silently crying not from fear anymore, but from the realization that a fragile girl he underestimated had shown him the truth about himself. A truth he could never escape again.